Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the channel. And today I'm going to give my review of Chi-Town Rumble 1989. Starting off the evening, we'll go to our first match of the night. It is Russian Assassin number 1 versus Michael P.S. Hayes. I thought it was an okay opening matchup for Chi-Town Rumble. Back and forth matchup between both Russian Assassin number 1 and Michael P.S. Hayes, with Hayes keeping the pace of the match. Hayes then hits a crossbody on Russian Assassin number 1. Hayes then hits his signature DDT as well on Russian Assassin number 1, pinning him for the 3. And your winner of the match is Michael P.S. Hayes. Hats off to Michael P.S. Hayes for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night as well. It is Butch Reed versus Sting. I thought this was a relatively good matchup. Back and forth matchup between both Butch Reed and Sting, with Sting keeping the pace of the match. Sting then hits a drop kick on Butch Reed. Reed is then now working on the neck of Sting. Sting then gets up, hits a scoop slam on Reed. Reed then gets up, hits a neck breaker on Sting. Sting then hits an elbow drop on Reed. Sting as well also hits a roll up on Reed as well, pins him for the 3. And your winner of the match is Sting. Hats off to Sting for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is a tag team matchup where the loser will have to leave the NWA. It is the Midnight Express and Jim Cornette versus the original Midnight Express and Paul E. Dangerously. This match itself was a good matchup. Back and forth matchup between both teams, with the Midnight Express keeping the pace of the match. Paul E. Dangerously then attacks Jim Cornette. Rose then hits a power slam on Lane. Rose then hits an axe handle off the top rope on Lane as well. Eaton then hits a drop kick off the top rope on Jack Victory. Then the Midnight Express hit the finish, pin for the 3, and your winners of the match are the Midnight Express. Hats off to the Midnight Express for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is for the NWA Television Championship. It is Rick Steiner versus Mike Rotunda. I thought this was a really good matchup. Back and forth matchup between both Mike Rotunda and Rick Steiner, with Rick Steiner keeping the pace of the match. Rick Steiner hits one of his legendary clotheslines on Mike Rotunda. Rick then hits a power slam on Rotunda as well. Kevin Sullivan is here. Rick then applies a sleeper hold on Mike Rotunda. The referee then counts to 3, but Rick Steiner's shoulders were down, and your winner of the match, and at that time new NWA Television Champion, is Mike Rotunda. Hats off to Mike Rotunda for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is for the NWA US Heavyweight Championship. It is Lex Luger versus Barry Windham. I thought this was a relatively good matchup. Back and forth matchup between both Luger and Windham, with Luger keeping the pace of the match. Luger then hits a press slam on Barry Windham. Lex then also hits a power slam on Windham as well. Windham then gets up, goes for a clothesline on the outside on Luger, but missed and hit the ring post. Windham's hand was it looked like Windham's hand was broken after he hit the ring post. It was all bloody. Windham then applies his signature claw on Lex Luger. Luger then breaks the hold. Lex and Windham both exchanged in the middle of the ring. Windham then hits a power slam on Lex Luger. Windham then hits a superplex on Lex off the top rope. Windham then hits a back suplex into a roll-up, but pins for the referee counts for 3, but Windham's shoulders were down. And the winner of the match, and at that time the new NWA United States Heavyweight Champion, is Lex Luger. Hats off to Lex Luger for getting a win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is for the NWA Tag Team Championships. It is Kevin Sullivan and Dr. Death Steve Williams versus the Road Warriors. I thought this was a relatively good match. Back and forth matchup between both teams, with the Road Warriors keeping the pace of the match. Animal hits a devastating power slam on Steve Williams. Williams then gets up, hits a press slam of his own on Hawk. Sullivan then hits Animal with a chair. Sullivan and Williams, like I said, were keeping the Road Warriors were keeping the pace. Hawk then hits a power slam on Sullivan. Hawk then hits a clothesline on the top rope on Sullivan as well. Pins for the 3, and your winners of the match, and at that time still NWA Tag Team Champions, are the Road Warriors. Hats off to the Road Warriors for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is the main event of Chi-Town Rumble. It is Ric Flair defending the NWA World Heavyweight Championship against Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. I thought this was a fantastic matchup. Back and forth matchup between both Flair and Steamboat, with Flair keeping the pace of the match. Flair then and Steamboat both exchange in the middle of the ring. Ricky then hits a drop kick on Flair. Flair and Ricky then both exchange chops in the middle of the ring. Ricky then lands a chop on Flair, sending Flair out of the ring. Ricky and Flair then both fight outside of the ring. Flair hits a knee drop on Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Flair also hits a double arm suplex on Ricky as well. Flair then hits a crossbody off the top rope on Ricky. Ricky then gets up, hits a roll-up for a near fall on Flair. Flair then applies his signature figure 4 leg lock on Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, but referee breaks the hold because Flair was using the ropes for his advantage. Flair then is working on the injured leg of Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Ricky then gets up, lands devastating chops on Flair. Ricky then hits a double arm suplex on Flair as well in the middle of the ring. Ricky then hits a chop off the top rope on Flair. Ricky then hits his signature crossbody off the top rope on Flair, but it took out Flair and the referee. Flair then goes for his figure 4 leg lock, but Ricky ends up turning it into a roll-up, pin for the 3, and your winner of the match. And at that time, the new NWA World Heavyweight Champion is Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Couple of things I'm going to say about the Chi-Town Rumble 1989 before I get out of here, man. It was a decent event. I'm not going to sit here and say that the event was the best event WCW NWA ever put together. That's just not the case. But I will say this. The matches on this card were relatively good. A couple of matches I could have done without. I think the Russian Assassin #1 versus Michael P.S. Hayes, the opening matchup for Chi-Town Rumble, was a decent match. Don't really know why it was needed. And if I'm being 100% honest with you, I thought the Freebirds were a great tag team. You had Michael P.S. Hayes, you had Jimmy Garvin, and you had Terry Gordy. Fantastic tag team. And he had a lot of good tag team matchups. Some of the best tag team matchups of all time against the Von Erichs. Not taking anything away from the Freebirds, but I will say this. Michael P.S. Hayes was better off staying as a tag team. Whether it was him tagging with Terry Gordy or him tagging with Jimmy Garvin, Michael P.S. Hayes was better as a tag team wrestler than a singles competitor. In my honest opinion, man, and that might be a hot take, but it's the truth. And at that time, obviously, I guess Terry Gordy was doing his own thing. He was probably working over in Japan at the time. And Jimmy Garvin was doing his own thing, and Michael P.S. Hayes was obviously doing his thing. But I feel like Michael P.S. Hayes needed to be in a tag team. I just feel like his singles run just really wasn't that good, in my honest opinion. The Butch Reed and Sting match, it was a relatively good matchup. And I'm going to say this as well. Butch Reed does not get credit where credit's due. I feel like Butch Reed was severely underrated. He had a lot of good matches in his career. Fantastic wrestler. And not only that, even later on in his WCW career, when he teamed up with Farouk as a tag team known as Doom, Doom was one of my favorite tag teams of all time. One of them. I mean, they were a fantastic tag team. 2 powerhouses with Butch Reed and Ron Simmons, a.k.a. Farouk. A fantastic tag team. And I feel like Butch Reed does not get a whole lot of credit where credit's due when it comes to his career as a professional wrestler. So I just want to, take a moment to let y'all know that Butch Reed was severely underrated. The other match on here is a couple other matches on here that I didn't mind as well. Midnight Express versus the original Midnight Express. I like the storyline of where they were going with the original Midnight Express and I guess the new Midnight Express with Bobby Eaton and Stan Lane. It was cool to see Paul E. Dangerously, a.k.a. Paul Heyman, fighting Jim Cornette. I thought it was absolutely hilarious, but that was an interesting match as well. And besides the main event, man, honestly, the one match that really I thought almost stole the show, besides the main event, was Lex Luger versus Barry Windham for the NWA United States Heavyweight Championship, man. I mean, at that time in the 80s, Lex Luger was a top draw for NWA WCW. Hands down. There's nobody in this world that can tell me that Lex Luger wasn't a top guy for WCW back in the mid to late 80s. There's no way. The way they were pushing Lex Luger at that time, no way. And he had a lot of really good matchups. I mean, this match against Barry Windham, phenomenal. He had a lot of championship opportunities and matchups against Ric Flair. I mean, obviously, NWA at that time knew what they had with Lex Luger. And this match was phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Barry Windham, an absolute legend, one of the members of if not the greatest stable of all time with the Four Horsemen. Barry Windham was a fantastic NWA United States Heavyweight Champion. And I always loved the finish that he had with the claw. It was absolutely fantastic. But this made for a fantastic match. And obviously the main event is the reason why Chi-Town Rumble, it was so good. I mean, you had two guys with Ric Flair and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. You had the blue collar man, such as for Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, and you had the guy who was the limousine riding, jet flying, you know, I guess, the popular guy, if you will, being Ric Flair, going up against a guy that was all about faith, family, pro wrestling with Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. And Ric Flair was just the polar opposite of that. And it just made for a great storyline. It made for a great matchup. And I mean, there's been many documentaries about Flair talking about the matches that he had with Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. And he's always said that he can wrestle Ricky the Dragon Steamboat every single night of his career, and they put on a 4 or 5 star match. And honestly, in Flair's sake, I would believe him. I mean, I would probably give this a 4-star match. This match was absolutely phenomenal from bell to bell, man. And to be honest with you, I was happy that Ricky the Dragon Steamboat got the win here. But I will say this as well. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat was one of Ric Flair's best rivalries of all time, in my honest opinion. I mean, obviously you have Dusty Rhodes, which is also another really good rivalry with Ric Flair. But you got to put Ricky the Dragon Steamboat in that category as far as being a top competitor and one of Flair's greatest rivals to date. So, again, hats off to Ricky the Dragon Steamboat for getting the win in that match and then becoming the new NWA World Heavyweight Champion at that time. So hats off to Ricky the Dragon Steamboat for that. As far as my rating for Chi-Town Rumble, I mean, to be honest with you, it wasn't a bad show. Chi-Town Rumble 1989 was a decent show. But honestly, the two matches that really stole the show for me was obviously Barry Windham defending the NWA United States Heavyweight Championship against Lex Luger, and obviously the main event being Ric Flair defending the NWA World Heavyweight Championship against Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Those two matches alone, I'm not going to put Chi-Town Rumble as a very, very high number, which may shock some of y'all, but I'm going to put Chi-Town Rumble as a solid 6, 6.5 at best, man. There was a couple matches on here I could have done without, and mainly the reason why it's getting a 6.5, close to a 7, is because of the main event with Ric Flair and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and Lex Luger versus Barry Windham. That's the main reason why this is getting close to, if not a 7 at best, for the Chi-Town Rumble 1989. But this is my review of the Chi-Town Rumble 1989. I hope you guys are out there staying safe. Be careful, and remember, stay classic. Peace.